In Gene Keys, your vocation, also known as your core vocation, is called your single most creative calling. And essentially, it's what calls you forth, that calls your other gifts forth, so that you can share those in a way that serves others, serves the world. But if that doesn't really make sense to you, you're like, what does that even mean? The way that I like to describe vocation is it's really the what underneath what you do. So no matter what your actual true quote unquote vocation or job or career looks like, or whatever task it is you're doing, the vocation is the energy underneath that. It's what you're really serving people with. So it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, if you are a cashier, a photographer, a surf instructor, a dog groomer, or you don't even have a job title that you identify with. No matter what, the stuff that you're doing, the way that you're actually serving people is not through that thing you're doing. Of course, that does help. But if you're talking about this on an energetic level, what you're giving to other people and how you're helping them, it's through that underlying energy that comes from your vocation. Not only that, but this is how you swing the door open to your own prosperity, how you get some kind of beneficial payback from the universe, from being you and doing what you do, because the vocation sphere in Gene Keys is the beginning of what we call the pearl sequence. And the pearl sequence is all about reaping prosperity and kind of like so reaping your rewards for being who you truly are, living authentically, living in this aligned way, and doing what you need to do truly on this planet. And real quick, if you don't know what your vocation is, you can get your free hologenetic profile, and there will be a little sphere called Core Vocation / Core Wound. We're going to go over in a second why it's called both. And if you are looking at your human design chart, it's the unconscious Mars placement. So if you look on the left side, that red column, if you see the symbol for Mars, that is going to be your unconscious Mars placement. And that's going to be what Gene Keys uses to determine your vocation. And something good to know is that when it comes to vocation, this whole arena, the theme that you have in your vocation sphere, that might not be the like literal way you quote unquote make money or become prosperous. And also, by the way, Richard Rudd makes it like a clear distinction between like wealth and financial abundance and prosperity, because there are many ways you can be prosperous and reap that benefit from the universe. But, let's say that we are just talking about money here. When it comes to your vocation, it's not necessarily like the way that you make money, but it's crucial if you want to make money in an aligned way, because this is like the first domino that you flick, and then it knocks down all the others. And so there's the sort of chain reaction where in some way, this is going to come back around to you in the form of prosperity because you worked on this part of your energy, basically. So there are some people who really do look like their vocation is their job. Like they use that energy a lot in their job. It seems obvious that they're playing it out there. There's going to be someone I'll give you an example of in the video. But there are some people who that's not really the case. Like they may just like live this out in their lives. Or again, some people don't really have what you'd call a job or like a career. So it's not necessarily that it's something that you do in like your literal career, although it could be, but it definitely is, like I said, it's the doorway opening up to that prosperity. So if you do want to know more about like your actual relationship with money and probably how it would look if it's coming to you, then I would look at your pearl sphere. And luckily enough for you, we have a video about that. It's all about the conscious Jupiter placement, which is the same as the pearl sphere. And I'm going to link that down below if you want to watch it. Now, I mentioned that this is also referred to as your core wound. And it's really important to know why. In order to get that juicy gift of your vocation, which is going to help yourself and others in the long run. So what's interesting about vocation, and this happens with a few different spheres in Gene Keys, but your vocation sphere is the beginning of the pearl sequence, but it's also the ending, or it's like fresh off of what we call the Venus sequence. And the Venus sequence is about relationships, love, both romantic, platonic, universal, whatever. But it's really about how do you keep your heart open in the world. So the Venus sequence ends on your core wound. It goes through like a bunch of wounds. It basically works backwards from like the oldest point that you have a wound back to like before you were even born. So you're carrying this, you're imprinted with this before you were even born. And you were born into this world with this core wound, not because you're being punished, but because you are here to elevate that frequency from the shadow to the gift, possibly even the city, which is the enlightened state of any gene key. So everyone starts out in the shadow of whatever gene key, which is also the gate in human design, they have as their vocation sphere. So if you struggle with this, don't feel bad, because the core wound is basically like the biggest obstacle or the biggest struggle that most people have in their lives until they work through it. And then it's like one of their greatest gifts and talents that they're here to share with people. And it's also ultimately going to be the key to your abundance, whatever that means for you. Richard Rudd actually says the shadow of this gene key that you have is your vocation, conceals your highest vocation, that great gift that can one day motivate you to excel in life. So whatever gene key that you have here is going to tell you the overall theme that you're going to be working with. So if we look at this person's chart, we see that they have their core wound slash core vocation, because it's their unconscious Mars, in gate 39. And it's on line 3, which we'll talk about later. In human design, this is the gate of provocation. And in gene keys, this is the shadow of provocation, the gift of dynamism, and the city of liberation. So a little bit about gate 39. In human design, it's basically about like pushing and quote unquote provoking others into awareness. Gate 39 is a very wake up people kind of gate, which some people take too well and some people don't really take too well. So what I tell people who have this in their chart is like, honestly, even if you're using this gate in a very aligned way and you're living in the gift, like there is still going to be some people who fucking hate being around that energy because they're not ready to be provoked. They're just not ready. But anyway, so there is a shadow here in both human design and in gene keys where gate 39 just kind of pokes to get a reaction or like to provoke and either to feel alive themselves or because they're like just upset that other people aren't doing something at a higher level. So, you know, they might waste their time saying like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing it that way? Stop doing it that way. You should be doing it this way. Or they're just not doing it at the right time with the right people. Like they're not really waiting for the right moment. So it doesn't land. Even if it ultimately could have helped someone, like they didn't wait for the right time. And so there's this, there can be this like really spiky kind of angry energy from gate 39 that usually ends up being like, why will no one listen to me? And then just ends up provoking more and it doesn't really get anyone anywhere. So in the core wound here, I wouldn't be surprised if this person experienced it this way in one way or another. Like I gave you a few different scenarios of how that could turn out. One of those would probably be what they experienced. And their job with their that being their core wound and then also their core vocation is to, you know, do whatever inner work they need to do to get to the gift of dynamism. This person will be this force for awakening other people for the better. This person is actually a political commentator. And a lot of what they say can sound pretty angry, but they like rally the troops in around what they think is really important for people to know. Like, come on, wake up, do better. Now let's look on the other hand at this person's core wound and core vocation. So they have their core wound slash vocation in gate 25, gene key 25. And in human design, this is called the innocent. And if there was any gate that just represented pure, universal, like Piscean love, it is gate 25. It is this knowledge of all is one, everything is beautiful, everything is divinely perfect, and I love it all. Like gate 25 is so here for love. And Karen Curry Parker, who actually studied under the founder of human design, said like gate 25 knows that all the world needs right now is love, sweet love, and does not understand when someone acts in a way that is not loving. They're like, why did you do that? Like what? And it's also this kind of I guess you could say like a detached sort of love where it's like, I love you because you're human, right? Like I love you because you deserve love because you exist. It's not an individual kind of love in that way. It's Piscean. Like Pisces are like that. Like everything is one to them. And then in gene keys, it's the shadow of constriction. It's the gift of acceptance. And then the city of universal love, which is so unsurprising. So it's a similar thing when it comes to the gift in gene keys. There's this acceptance of like, wow, I can love everything because even if it's not preferential to my human mind, there's this part of me that knows like the underlying frequency of everything is love. It couldn't not be because the universe is made of love. So that's beautiful. But in the shadow of this, both in gene keys and human design, it's like a very cold, discompassionate, highly detached kind of energy that can actually be quite judgmental because it's like, no, this is wrong. Things should not be this way. And by doing that, by judging things as wrong, the shadow of gate 25 does constrict you and it cuts you off from that universal source of energy, love, whatever, of all is one. And it's a deep feeling of loneliness, actually, and feeling like you can't trust other people, like you're shutting down. But when this person moves through that and works up into their gift, then they get to that place where they can accept life as it is and see how beautiful that is, and really get what they need from that, and possibly even show other people how to do that. So that's the gene key itself when it comes to the core wound, core vocation, and how that would work. But just like when it comes to any gene key or any gate in the human design chart, the line that is on is going to matter as well. That's going to give you some more important information. It's going to really ratchet down like how this will show up for you in your life uniquely for you. So the line is going to be the number after the decimal point, and it's either going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So we're going to go over briefly what those lines are for your core vocation. I'm not going to go over them super in depth, and I'm also not going to go into the lines of the core wound because those are going to be different. But if you really want to go deeper into the lines of your core vocation or core wound or any of the spheres of the gene keys, actually, I highly recommend that you check out Jay Cohen's channel because he did a fantastic series on all of these. Jay knows this stuff inside and out, like way better than I do, because I'm a human design person. He's more of the gene keys expert. And he's guided plenty of people through this. He's also just fantastic at explaining it. Also, Jay came onto my show and explained the Venus sequence, which was awesome. It was one of my favorite episodes. So I highly recommend you check that out too. So if your vocation is on a one line, that means that you are here to basically like be the quote unquote creative who brings forth something new based on the gene key that you have. And Richard Rudd says that if you look at the specific gene key, like that shows you the arena through which you're going to be creative and like the kind of thing that you're going to be bringing to life. So one thing to know about this is that it's your job to birth this thing. It's not your job to spread the message about this thing. It's not your job to market it. Not that you can't, but at a certain point, what he says is that you kind of have to let this go. Like you kind of have to let your baby go, and let it do whatever it's going to do in the world, because your job was simply to birth it, not really to raise it, or to raise it until a certain point, and then when it's 18, say bye, have fun at school. And it's funny because my friend and I were talking about this, but Richard Rudd has, I think, said that this system that he's created, it's not supposed to be for like giving people readings. Like, don't give people readings like you would give a human design reading, because he said this is for independent, individual self-analysis. This is for someone to, like, you can only contemplate these on your own. Someone else can't tell you how these show up in your life. However, that's not necessarily how a lot of people use them now. Just like human design was not intended to be used the way that many people use it now. But at a certain point, when it gets so big, it's kind of out of the creator's hands. So of course we respect where it came from and we respect the intention of it and we don't misuse the system. But this is just to say, like, if you have a one-line vocation, you're here to bring this to life, and that's what you do, right? And that's how you're going to serve people. Now, if you have a two-line vocation like myself, you are here for quote unquote marketing. So what Richard Rudd essentially says about this is basically your job is to bring something from obscurity into light. So it's not necessarily about being the person who created something, but it is about bringing attention to something. And what's cool about the two line is that you'll usually be drawn to somebody who has a one line vocation. So there's this kind of symbiotic relationship between the two. Like, one person is the person who just comes up with this, and the other person's like, oh, I know how to spread this. Like, I know how to get other people to see this. And the two line is also about effortlessness and ease. So the two line can very easily see how to, he says, like, quote unquote, direct the flow of information. So take what the one line has done and then get it out, basically, which is interesting because that's not usually the two lines job. But I guess it's different in Gene Keys. And I actually think that I'm a pretty good example of how this can work, because my core vocation is gate 46, which in human design is called love of the body. And in Gene Keys has the shadow of seriousness, the gift of delight, and then the city of, I really just don't even remember. But for me, the biggest thing that I teach people is how to live in and listen to and enjoy being in their body, because that's what human design is actually about. It's about listening to your body and really tuning into that, being present enough to do that and trusting it. But I didn't come up with human design. Like, I didn't create that. I didn't make that up. It's just something that I bring to other people's awareness so that they can fulfill the energy of gate 46, which is love of being in the body or, trusting the body. Now, if you have a three-line profile, Richard Rudd says that you are here for the quote unquote strategy. And that's not necessarily saying that you were like the strategic thinker. What he says about this is the third line gift is strategy, the innate ability to assess, plan, and implement direction that is in alignment with universal forces. And then the three line is all about personal experience and learning as you go. So he mentions that a lot of what you're going to help other people become more efficient with and more effective with, you're going to learn through your own like successes and failures, basically through like figuring out what does not work that you're going to save other people time. And you're going to do that around the specific energy that you have as your gene key in your vocation. Now, if you have a four-line vocation, Richard Rudd says that you are, quote unquote, the salesperson. And it's not that you are necessarily selling a product or even an idea. What he says about the four-line, which I think is so true, is that they're selling their heart. And so he says that a four-line would be a really great spokesperson around whatever the energy is of their vocation, like speaking that message out, sharing it with other people. However, if you have this line, another important thing to know is that the four-line in human design or gene keys is all about connection with the other. It's about networking. It's about, people who you have true deep relationship with. And so it can be really easy for the four line to kind of crumble under the pressure of other people when the people closest to them don't agree with them, or like everyone around them is like, that's wrong. That's weird. We don't like that. So it's really important for you as a four line. And this is going to be something that you learn through your core wound, probably, to stand tall in what you believe and really stick to it, because you are here to serve other people through this thing. So there are going to be people who don't get it. They may be even people who are close to you, but you can't let that stop you if you really feel authentically and intuitively drawn to this thing. Now, if you have your vocation on a five line, this is again very, very similar to the five line in human design. Richard Rudd says that this person is kind of like the quote unquote manager. They're here for management. Really, what the five line here is here to do is to break through old paradigms. It's to shift the way we see things on a grand scale. They're here to universalize something. So when you learn whatever you learn through moving from the core wound to the core vocation that you have, you are going to be somebody who universalizes that on a grand scale to help other people change their lives and for you to help change the world ultimately. Like, you will probably be some kind of leader around this, or you will be seen as a leader, and you need to see yourself as a leader too. Like, you are becoming an authority through whatever it is that you have as your vocation. Like, whatever energy you have as your core vocation, you have to know that you moving through that is you becoming an authority on it. So people need you to claim that. Now, lastly, if your vocation is on a six line, then Richard Rudd says that you are here for quote unquote philanthropy, or to be the philanthropist. He also calls it the investor. So the six line is really here for the long-term vision. They're here for sustainability. So whatever you are using your vocation for, it's to help humanity in the grand scheme. And also, I'll note this, he doesn't say this in Gene Keys, but in human design, the sixth line is the role model. So you are going to be some kind of role model for others through what it is you do. And I'll tell you that when you're helping other people through your vocation, it actually might feel like you are quite removed from helping them. Like, you're not really doing anything to like immediately solve their problems, because that's more of a five line thing. That's not a six line thing. The six line stands back and says, I am the example of how this can be done. And that means that you do kind of have to stand separately from other people so they can look at you, right? Like, you can't be down in it with them. If you have your vocation on a six line, you might notice that like you really do help other people simply by owning what you've been through and showing up as the role model and the example of how that can turn out for the better. So it's really not about like, you might, sometimes it can feel like you're not helping people as a six line, right? You're like, well, I should be doing things for them. But no, the way that you really help them is by being your true authentic self. And most of us just don't believe that, because no one has really been taught that being yourself and just being a vibe is really enough. But it is, especially for a six line. So if we look at the charts that we had before, this first person has their core vocation / core wound in gate 39, which is provocation, and it's on line 3, which is the strategist. So one, this person's going to learn a lot through what look like probably failures on like who to provoke and who not to provoke, and when it's worthwhile to poke and prod and when it's not. And then they're also probably going to help other people or a group of people see how to bring other people into awareness in the most efficient way possible. Like, where are we going to be wasting our time with doing this, and where is this actually going to produce some kind of result so that we do wake people up? What's really interesting about this person too too is that, in my opinion, he's a good resource for the people who listen to him, who do want to make a change in the world, who do want to provoke growth, but maybe don't realize that not everything you do to provoke another person is going to provoke growth. Sometimes it's just like that you're going to get a reaction out of them. And then it's easy to kind of get caught up in that thinking, oh, I got a reaction from you, so I won. So you see I'm right. So you're going to change because you're more aware now. He's the kind of person who would have learned through trial and error, like there's a difference. and I'm going to make it more effective for us by showing you what I've learned about how to provoke and how to make people more aware in a way that's actually going to serve them and it's going to serve us. Now, this other person has their vocation in gate 25 or the 25th gene key. So this person is going to be a role model for universal love or for acceptance. They're going to show other people how to do that simply by being it themselves. So it may not look like they're really getting involved with other people's lives and teaching them how to do that. They're not going to be like fixing it. They may not even look like an authority on it, but they will show other people how to do it by living as their true authentic selves, and sharing what they've learned and just living through what they've learned. Anyway, that is it for me. I know this is a bit of a long one, but I really love recording this. I've wanted to talk about this for a while. Again, if you want to get deeper into the lines of this sphere or literally any sphere in your chart, go check out Jay's channel. And I'm also going to have a link below to the video that we did on the Venus sequence because it was awesome. But that's it from me. As always, you rock, and I will talk to you next time.